So we're going to segue now to our evening. We did not just invite one, we invited 7 keynote speakers, and that is what is going to be tonight. Kevin, of course, will not be with us because his wife, well, her due date was today, and she delivered on time. We have another one of our guests who I'm told is on her way in traffic with a screaming baby in the car seat. So there's another theme going on here. I'm not sure what it is, but she might arrive late, but she'll come up. So I'm just going to spend about 2 or 3 minutes and introduce what we're going to do, and then we're going to dive right into it. Because of the context of where we live in New England, where there are 75% on average, as I mentioned earlier, of people in New England do not participate in the life of a faith, whether that is a mosque, a synagogue, temple, church. So we decided let's gather some of these folks and talk with them, and that's what we're going to do tonight. My motivation in doing this is twofold. One is I want to model what you can do in your own communities. All of the people that are up here because they are the friend of one of our pastors. So you can do this in your own congregation. You don't need to set it up like this. You can go and have a conversation at a Starbucks. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's good for us to hear how we're seen, how we're understood, and maybe learn from that. So that's it. It's basically pretty simple. That's the idea. So I'd like to invite all of our guests to come forward. We have Dane, we have Wayne, we have Tammy, Eugenia, Cory, Debbie. Really good. So, what I think would be a helpful way before we just kind of dive in is just introduce yourself, and if you want to say who you're connected to or why in the world are you here, and how did this all come to be? Something like that. Anybody want to start us off with just a general kind of go?
Sure, I'll start.
Cory, thanks. Great.
I'm Cory Jackson. I live in downtown Lynn, Massachusetts, and a big part of a downtown revitalization going on in an old industrial town in Massachusetts, and it's fantastic. And the pastor of the local Lutheran church, John Nicketh, who's over there, is also a huge part of that revitalization. He's on the board of my theater company, and has been incredibly supportive. And so that's sort of how this all came to be. Actually, when I was interviewing him to become a board member of Arts After Hours, he was interviewing me about my faith. And we got into a very long conversation about my journey throughout my whole life, starting in a Protestant church in Lynn as a young child, and by the time I was 18, getting dismayed with the church and going to college and trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be. And I really haven't been back in a organized building, as I think you called it, the life of a faith, whatever that building is, ever since I left for college. And so I'm excited for this conversation.
Great. Thanks.
I'm here, I'm a friend of Reverend Linda Forsberg from East Greenwich in Rhode Island. I'm a retired iron worker, 62 years old. I raised 2 daughters, not in the church. Basically, I'm I guess the term is a lapsed Catholic, but it's a little more aggressive than that, especially lately, but I'm not here to grind that axe. One of the things that comes to mind about this thing, that I'm not really nervous, it's just that I've lived long enough to know that there's some people that need religion very much, and I would hate to take that away from somebody, because you never know, that might be the last thread they're hanging on by. And then there are some people that probably don't need it or whatever. I sort of view myself that way. I sort of think, though, well, maybe you've never been tested enough. But that's for me to decide, I guess. So that's sort of why I'm here, because I was asked by Linda to come and explain myself.
All right, great. Tammy, you want to chime in here?
My name's Tammy Brown. I actually am part of a faith community. I'm a member of the ELCA. I go to St. Paul in Warwick, Rhode Island, but I grew up not part of any church. I was baptized in United Methodist Church and could probably count on one hand or less the amount of times I ever went to church growing up. It was never a very comfortable experience for me. I always felt very out of place, so I never really was a part of a church community. And then probably about 4 years ago, I just felt like I always had a belief in God, and I felt like I wanted a deeper meaning in life and a deeper connection with God. And luckily, my mom lived basically across the street from St. Paul, and they had a 5 o'clock service, so that meant I didn't have to get up at 9 o'clock on Sunday. So, so I started coming, and I've been a part of the church ever since. But I still, this is the type of church community where, like many that are very, many people in the church have been there their whole lives, and they're very familiar with different congregations and the way different things work. And so I still feel like I'm kind of a newcomer in that respect, so I kind of can see it from both sides, from the perspective of someone who's outside the church, but also inside the church as well. So.
Thank you. Dane, you want to hop in, or Debbie?
I guess I'll go next. My name is Dane. I'm friends with Mark Huber. Hi. He brought me here. He's a pastor at a church in Marshfield called Sanctuary. And I found the church originally because I was dating a girl, and she was a Methodist, and the church in the area was dying off, and it was part of a revitalization program. So I met Mark, and I was going through a rough patch, and I just needed someplace to go, so I went there, and I've been there ever since. And they put up with me showing up week after week, even though I don't consider myself a very religious person. But it's a great community, and I love being part of it, and I'm really excited to be part of this group here tonight.
Excellent. Thanks, Dane. Debbie.
I guess that leaves me. I'm Debbie, and I know Bishop Jim before he was a bishop, and he asked me to speak or to be a part of this, and he's over 6 feet, so I'm here. No, I've known Jim and Lisa, his wife, for many, many years. He is a good friend of my husband, and they've known each other since their early 20s. And we have been in lots of conversations about religion and faith and spirituality, and he asked if I would join this panel tonight, so I did. And I do not belong to a faith community. I left home at 17, and I've not belonged to a church since I left home. So, and I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you. And Eugenia's on her way, and we'll welcome her in when she comes here. So.
All right. Well, I think I just found God while driving 4 hours from Boston. Yeah. So I'm sorry that I am late and that I missed probably all of the wonderful comments that were already made. I guess I'll keep my comments brief and just give you a sense of who I am and where I come from. I was baptized Catholic, baptized in haste, actually, because I was a very sick baby, and my mother had like every good Irish Catholic family, we had a nun and a priest in the family. And they baptized me thinking, just in case. And then after that, I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school up until I was about 8th grade, and then I decided that I didn't really believe in what I was being taught, or didn't agree with the teachings that I was getting. And so I decided not to get confirmed. And my parents were actually pretty supportive of that, and they were okay at the time, and I just felt like I was in a very conservative church, and no one looked like me, and no one was experiencing what I was experiencing, and it just didn't make sense, and so I chose not to get confirmed, and then just sort of explored different religious experiences with my friends and other family members. My best friend was Jewish, so I celebrated all the high holidays with her and her family. I had another friend who was Protestant, so I was a member of that youth group, and really just that was my connection to any sort of organized religion. And it was sort of a loose connection, and I never really felt like I was necessarily part of any one religious community. Certainly felt like I was part of a larger community. And that was fine. And then as I got older, I just kind of got away from religion. I don't consider myself to be an atheist. My husband, wherever he is actually an atheist. I would put myself in the camp of agnostic. I do believe that there's something higher than me, but I don't necessarily think that I need to put the name God on it. I don't know what it looks like or what it would sound like, but I know how it makes me feel, and I know what it feels like when I'm turning to whatever that is. So that's it. I'm sure some other things will come to mind as I'm listening to some of the other comments, but that's sort of where I am at this moment in my life. I will add one thing, though. I am very, I mentioned this in our conversation the other day. One reason why I don't necessarily follow any one religion or another is because I don't really feel fully committed to one school of religion more than another. And I take umbrage with those who sort of go through the motions and do all of the things that they're supposed to do according to their religion, but don't actually live their lives according to it. I feel like I do a good job of trying to be a good person and live as a good person, and I don't necessarily have a religious label on myself, but I certainly know those people and have people in my family who, go through all the sacraments and do everything they're supposed to do, but at the end of the day, they're not bringing the most important piece of what they're supposed to be learning into their lives or infusing that in their day-to-day lives. So that's one thing. The other thing is I am very grateful that as a child I was able to experience many different religious experiences and teachings because my parents were open-minded. And so that's one thing that I hope to impart on my own daughter as she kind of comes of age. I don't necessarily want to impose one thing on her over another. I want to give her the opportunity to sort of find these things herself. So that's where I come from.
So let's start with, and we talked about this last week, but it's kind of the question that seems to get framed a lot, which is people say, I'm spiritual but not religious. That's often a way in which people articulate who they are or how they explain who they are, particularly people that are not connected with a faith community. When you hear that spiritual but not religious, does that describe you? Is that helpful? Or do you disagree with that? What does that mean, spiritual but not religious?
Well, I'm going to jump in and go first to get it over with, because I was last to speak before. This came up on Saturday when we were talking with Bishop Jim, and I'm a professor in the university system of New Hampshire, so of course I had to go and start thinking a little bit more about that and doing some reading, and then filter that through my own thinking. And what I've come up with is that I really believe that I'm a very spiritual person, and that I spend a lot of time in my journey to better understand who I am in relation to others and in relation to this world and in relation to the universe. And what I see as a difference is really that religion, or at least formal religion, is also about spirituality, but it's guided through a specific set of beliefs and maybe rituals of prayer, of commitment, and I believe my journey is very personal and very individual to me, but I depend on others to guide me in that journey to figure out, again, who I am in relation to all of you, and who I am as a mother, and who I am as a wife, and who I am as a daughter, and in all of my relations.
It's something that resonates with me, and that is the personal nature of it. I do view myself as religious, even though I'm not a member of a church or a temple, or but I do believe in God, and I do lean on God often in times of both joy and sorrow. It's something that's important to me. But for me, I guess the religious part is very personal, and it's never needed a building or a structure to guide it. And I think in my youth, that building really got in the way for me, not in that particular church that I was going to. So I often say that I am religious and I believe in God. I'm not really a fan of organized religion. So that's where I go with that statement.
Right. So it's the difference between organized religion versus, even though you described yourself, you use the word religious. Your belief in God, you're on your own journey. And you have a really interesting story, too. You want to add that at this point?
Sure. I converted to Judaism when I was 22, 23 years old. So that's, wow, a long time ago now. I went to Syracuse University, and in Syracuse University, there's this amazing building called Hendricks Chapel. And every single religion, well, I can't say that, that's untrue, but many religions are represented inside one building. And I went to each one of those leaders and talked to them about my issues with my faith, my issues with my church, how political it got, and some of the intolerance I saw. And it was really eye-opening to me to see that everyone's after the same thing. Every religion was so similar in what it was after. And that was a relief. It was like I didn't need to be anything. I didn't need to label it. I could just be me, believe what I believe, go out into the world and do really great things with my community. That's part of what guides me in this mission to revitalize downtown Lynn and get as many people involved in it as possible. That's really my church. Yeah.
I think for me personally, it's it. I'm very spiritual, but not religious. I do a lot of the times I feel a connection. I feel like there's a higher power. There's something more going on. Sometimes I don't, but a lot of times I do, and I don't feel like I need. It's a personal thing for me. It's my personal journey, and there's so many different religions. For me, it's just kind of like, how can you have one that's correct when the rest are not correct, or how can one be more right when others are not? And I think there's a lot of beautiful things about all the different religions, and there's a lot of not so beautiful things about all the different religions. And I think if you stay focused on one aspect of faith and one type of worship, I think it can blind you to some of the other beautiful things about some of the different cultures and different religions. So I think as a spiritual person, I think I accept and incorporate different aspects of different types of worship into
Do you think that Christianity is more so that way than other religions? More we're right and others are wrong?
That's hard for me to say because I'm the most familiar with Christianity. So it's hard for me to say so as opposed to other religions. It kind of closes you off to some other beautiful
So that kind
ideas.
of exclusive aspect of it gives you real pause.
Yeah.
All right. Others, spiritual, religious, what is that?
Actually, joke with Pastor Dana that one of the reasons why I continue to go to St. Paul is that it's not that churchy. She's not a churchy pastor. and I don't even know what that means really, but I guess growing up in like the 4 or 5 times that I went to church growing up, it was always on like Easter or usually Easter or something like that, or a wedding or one of my cousins' first communions or something like that, and you walk in to the service, and especially a Catholic service, but I mean, the Lutheran service is pretty similar, but you know, thank goodness I didn't walk in when they were still doing it in Latin, because everybody's, you know, all together, everybody stands up, and everybody knows when to stand up, and everybody knows when to sit, and everybody knows when to kneel, and everybody's repeating stuff back, and I'm like, I can't even follow along. I don't even know what's going on. And then, you know, the pastor comes and does a sermon, and it seems very like a lecture. It sometimes feels like I'm sitting in class, and it doesn't resonate with me. And then it gets wrapped up in all the other negative aspects that you see in the media, or you know, exclusionary things and this whole like guilt thing and all of that. And so I felt very uncomfortable. So when I started going to St. Paul, I started going to the Saturday service, and it's a very good service to ease your way into church, so to speak, because at least our service was very small, very intimate. Pastor Dana like talked to us. It didn't feel like we were being like in a class or in a lecture. It was a small community, so and it was okay to not know, okay, we stand up now, we sit now, we kneel now, you know, it wasn't as overwhelming. So I found that was an easy way to kind of ease into it and just focus on why I was there, which was to learn more about God and to kind of solidify my own relationship with God. That's why I came to church, because I didn't necessarily want to be religious. I just wanted to solidify my own relationship with God, my own personal relationship with God. And I think if people come with that idea, then it makes it easier to then learn about some of the rituals and learn what they mean over time, and learn that also helps you to solidify your relationship with God. But, you know, you have to kind of have that. I had to have that easing in process to begin with, so.
Interesting. A way to enter in, yeah. Wayne?
It's a very complicated question about spirituality. First of all, you have to start to think about why would human beings be spiritual. Part of it, I think, is that we're the only species that's aware of its own demise. And I have read that some people say the only reason we're spiritual is because we're grasping at straws, because we don't want to believe it ends. I don't know if it does or not. It doesn't matter. Because in my way of thinking, 2 things. One is, if you live your life as Jesus said, treat other people as you wish to be treated, you'll be fine. So it's a non sequitur. It doesn't matter. And the other thing, I forgot what the other thing was. Geez, maybe I ought to run for governor of Texas. Oh, I remember now. I don't want to get anybody mad, but if there is a God, he's kind of a jerk, because nobody's been ever able to explain to me childhood cancer, why the earthquakes and the floods always hit the shacks. You know, it's just some things that are so incongruous with that idea of a benevolent being that's supposed to like love us. You know, what kind of love was that in Oklahoma? And then you got some people sitting there say, oh, we survived, thank God. Thank God he wouldn't have run the damn thing through your town. You know, so nobody can explain this. It's since the 2 cave guys decided that the fire was pretty miraculous, that's where it started. So it's not a question for human beings to answer. But if you take comfort in what other people have to say to you about life and the book and all that stuff, that's fine. I'm not going to go down the road about, hey, leave me alone, don't call my house, stop knocking on my door. I know that's not this organization, but I hope. But I'm not here to dissuade anybody from anything. It's just that nobody's got any answers for me, personally. That's all it boils down to. And I don't think I can't figure it out myself, and I think I'm half smart anyhow, so that's what I have to say.
Well, it's interesting. There's a theme here of kind of, and I think when we talked online, one of you used the phrase, I don't want to be boxed in. I don't want to be boxed in by an external, outside of my belief system telling me what to do. Or I also heard, and I'm hearing it a little bit tonight, I want to have is there a safe place for me to explore these things? Or am I going to run up against somebody that's going to say, hey, what you just said is wrong, just sit down and shut up, that kind of a thing. And I'm hearing that a lot of you are expressing that in different ways, maybe not that.
You're absolutely right. I would take more pleasure in sitting in a room with intelligent people like these, and I assume is in this room, and discuss politics and religion, and they tell you those are the two subjects that you should never discuss, which makes no sense to me because I don't care about the Patriots. What? So the two things that are questions for life that actually affect us, don't talk about it. Who's spreading this rumor? The politicians? Uh-oh. And the pastors. Don't shake the ground, don't. So that's, there should be a place where reasonable people could sit down and discuss like this. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm here. I would, okay. I would not go to church on Sunday as long as Meet the Press and those shows are on Sunday. I feel I also have an obligation to stay informed, although it's not always there, but stay informed in politics and how the country is run, than going through some ritual and singing a song that's 100 years old and means nothing to me.
Yeah, right, that's okay. I told you, I said I wanted him to be honest, so Cory, go ahead.
I wish you were my minister when I was 18. Because what you just said a little bit earlier, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, and you'll be fine. I know it wasn't you that came up with that. But that's not what they said to me when I decided to leave the church. They started to send, literally in the mail, I got scripture from Isaiah and from a deleted psalm, apparently, from the Torah. So I was getting those kind of things in the mail from members of my parents' church. That's not going to do anything to turn me back. Even my mother, in tears, told me that the only pathway to heaven was through Jesus Christ. Okay, but again, it's something I was struggling with and I couldn't comprehend that. That didn't make any sense to me. Similar to somewhat of what you said with how could everyone else be that wrong? So, if my minister had turned to me and said, live a great life, treat other people really well, that's what we're all about, I think it would have been a different conversation. I could have taken my time in exploring it more, as I think the theme is coming out here, like you were saying, exploring it more and coming to terms with it as a Christian, perhaps. But instead, it was just so black and white that I had to find something else that I could believe.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think the part of the thing that keeps me coming back to the church I go to, Sanctuary, is that we have such a diverse cross section of people who go there, and we have Baptists who go to Baptist service in the morning and they go to their service in the afternoon. We have a couple agnostics, people like myself who go, and we have everybody in between, and we have such great conversations, and everybody goes, and everybody, it just, everything about it says that it shouldn't work, but it does, and we have just amazing talks, and it's a place where we can be open. I feel like I can be open about how I feel, and they feel like they can be open about how they feel. We have amazing talks, and we all come at it from a point where I think we all know that there's going to be times when we say things or we hear things that we don't agree with, but it's coming from a point of respect, mutual respect. And I think it's a safe place. I feel safe going there and exploring these issues. And it's just, I think it's that safety that is important. That, for us to be here tonight and for you to say, please just be honest. That's the only thing I ask of you. Like that's big, and I think it's important. And I obviously feel safe enough to be here talking to you guys. So
Great, in front of 500 people.
yeah, well, yeah. It's a little nerve-wracking, but but I think it's things like that where unless we come at it from a safe point, we're just going to stay stuck in the same patterns, and we're not going to progress.
Yeah.